They say the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. They were wrong. In the fractured heart of a nation on its knees, a city of iron and industry was choking on its own despair. Cleveland, 1935. Here, a new kind of fear took root. A fear not of hunger, but of something far more primal. Something that hunted in a place they called Kingsbury Run. This wasn't a killer. This was an absence, a void where a human being should be. A meticulous phantom who left behind not victims, but questions. Questions carved in bone that screamed into the silence of an unsolved American nightmare. In hushed, terrified tones, they gave him a name, the Cleveland Torso Murderer. And the ghost that stalked their waking hours still haunts the darkest corridors of criminal lore.
The timeline is a grim haze, but the nightmare began, as they often do, with an ordinary discovery. A bundle near the tracks. It wasn't refuse. It was human. Or rather, what was left of one. A torso, headless, limbless, drained of blood, with an unnerving surgical precision. A body not merely killed, but unmade. The Cleveland police were baffled. A mob hit? Vengeance? The city was no stranger to violence, but this was different. This was cold, alien. Then, another appeared. And another. A pattern, etching itself in blood. Male, female, it didn't matter. The victims were society's ghosts, the nameless and the faceless, and each one was disassembled with the same confident, precise cuts. This wasn't frenzied rage. This was the work of an architect, of dehumanization. The realization dawned with horrifying speed. Cleveland had a monster in its midst. A serial killer of a kind they had never conceived. The discoveries continued, a grim, clockwork rhythm of death. The butcher's signature was now unmistakable. Decapitation, dismemberment, and always that chilling, surgical precision, as if each victim was merely a specimen on a slab. Fear was no longer a whisper. It was a poison seeping into the city's fabric. Soon, the newspapers gave it a name, the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run. The Phantom was now a celebrity, and the city became obsessed with one question. Who was he? A deranged doctor? A cultist performing unspeakable rites? Or, the most terrifying thought of all, an ordinary man hiding an abyss behind an unremarkable face? The pressure on the city became immense. A city on edge demanded an end to the reign of the Torso Murderer. Into this maelstrom of fear stepped a legend, Eliot Ness, the untouchable, the man who stared down Al Capone and won. As Cleveland's new director of public safety, he was the city's last, best hope. Ness didn't just walk the beat. He brought the crime lab to the street. He demanded fingerprint analysis on glass fragments, chemical tests on scraps of cloth, forging a scientific battlefront against the city's old-world shadows. He understood the grammar of greed, the logic of the gangster. But this was a different language entirely, a language of pure nihilism. The torso murderer left no fingerprints, no witnesses, no motive. Forensic science was in its infancy. Ness, the great hunter, was fighting a ghost with little more than shoe leather and a growing sense of dread. The nightmare, it seemed, was just as untouchable as him. And then, in 1938, as suddenly as it began, the killing stopped. An unnatural quiet fell over Kingsbury Run. The phantom had vanished. Had he died? Moved on? Or was he merely watching from the shadows, sated? Eliot Ness, a man who could not abide a vacuum, was still under pressure. The public demanded a resolution. Frustrated, he made a decision that would forever tarnish his legacy. He ordered the shantytowns of Kingsbury Run burned to the ground. The official reason was sanitation. The unofficial reason was to flush out the monster. But it was an act of brutal cleansing by fire, punishing the city's most vulnerable. Did the flames drive the killer away? Or did they simply incinerate the last remaining clues, ensuring the phantom's escape into legend? The fires burned hot that summer, but the killer's identity remained cold as ice. The killing stopped, but the whispers never did. The identity of the torso murderer became one of America's great criminal enigmas. For decades, investigators sifted through the ashes. Suspects emerged, but one name always rose from the muck, a name that haunted Eliot Ness to his grave. Dr. Francis E. Sweeney. A gifted surgeon from a prominent family, an alcoholic with a dark side. Ness suspected him, interrogated him, was certain of his guilt. But Sweeney was untouchable. He committed himself to a mental institution, placing himself beyond legal reach, and taunted Ness with cryptic postcards for years. There was never enough proof, just a ghost of a case against a ghost of a man. The phantom, it seemed, had chosen his victims well. The forgotten, whose voices couldn't scream loud enough for justice. The torso murders left an indelible scar on Cleveland's psyche. More than a case, it became folklore, a chilling reminder that monsters can walk among us and simply get away. For Eliot Ness, this was the shadow that always followed, the one that got away, the phantom who outmaneuvered the untouchable. The case itself forced a grim evolution in police work, a brutal lesson learned in blood about the desperate need for forensic science. Even today, the case fascinates and horrifies, a labyrinth with no exit. But the phantom of Kingsbury Run remains just that, a ghost in the machine of American crime, a testament to the darkness that can walk among us, not only unseen, but unnamed. Though the killing stopped, the whispers never truly faded. The identity of the Cleveland torso murderer became one of America's most enduring and fiercely debated criminal enigmas. For decades, investigators and armchair detectives alike would sift through the cold ashes of the case, searching for a phantom. Was he a transient specter, riding the rails, leaving carnage in his wake before dissolving into the vastness of the country? Or was the monster one of Cleveland's own, a devil hiding in plain sight? Suspects emerged, their names forever branded by the phantom's reign. There was Frank Dolezal, a bricklayer, arrested. He confessed, then died under a cloud of suspicion in police custody. His words, many believed, beaten out of him. His guilt, a contentious shadow to this day. But then there was the other name, the one that echoed loudest in the silence, the most prominent and perhaps most chilling of all. A name that reportedly haunted Eliot Ness until his dying breath. Dr. Francis E. Sweeney. A gifted surgeon, a war hero from World War I, who honed amputation techniques on the blood-soaked battlefields of Europe. A man of science, a pillar of society. Yet also a man shattered by war, a severe alcoholic, prone to dark, volatile moods and psychological dissents. And he possessed the skills, the chilling anatomical knowledge. Most damningly, his connections and work cast his shadow directly over Kingsbury Run, with unnerving access to the city's forgotten souls, the phantom's chosen prey. The whispers, at last, seemed to have a face, and the hunt for a ghost was about to ignite into a very personal obsession for Eliot Ness.
Eliot Ness was convinced. But a public arrest of a man like Sweeney, a man of his stature, was impossible without irrefutable proof. So, he orchestrated a bold, unorthodox gambit. He needed Sweeney isolated, away from his influential family, away from the city's prying eyes. In a stunning, clandestine move, Ness arranged for Dr. Sweeney to be taken into unofficial and deeply unconstitutional custody. For 2 harrowing weeks, in a secret suite at the Cleveland Hotel, guarded by Ness's most loyal men, the 2 titans of this dark saga engaged in a silent, psychological war. The untouchable versus the doctor. No rubber hoses, no bright lights. Just 2 formidable intellects, circling each other in a claustrophobic, smoke-filled room. Ness laid out his case, meticulously. He presented the damning web of circumstantial evidence, the timelines, the uncanny medical knowledge, the chilling precision required for the dismemberments. He pushed, he prodded, he accused, his voice a low, steady burn. Sweeney, for his part, never flinched, never broke. Witnesses described him as unnervingly calm, articulate, almost amused. He toyed with Ness, deflecting, denying, a glint of cold arrogance forever in his eye. To break the stalemate, Ness had Sweeney subjected to one of the earliest, crudest forms of the polygraph test. The machine's needles, reportedly, danced off the very paper. The operator, a pioneer in the fledgling field, declared Sweeney the most positive, the most deceptive subject he had ever tested. He was lying. But a polygraph was not a confession. In the eyes of the law, it was little more than a parlor trick. At the end of those 2 grueling weeks, Eliot Ness had nothing but a raw, gnawing certainty, a burning conviction that he had been closeted with the phantom himself. He was forced to release Sweeney. The ghost walked free from that hotel room, leaving the most famous lawman in America utterly alone with the cold, bitter ashes of his investigation.
The killings had stopped, but for Ness, the case was a festering, open wound. His prime suspect, his phantom, had outmaneuvered him. The city still breathed in terror. Frustrated, backed into a desolate corner, Eliot Ness made a decision. A desperate, scorched earth decision that would forever tarnish his heroic, untouchable legacy. In the sweltering August of 1938, he declared war. Not on the elusive killer, but on his hunting ground. He ordered the shantytowns of Kingsbury Run burned to the ground. A grim armada of police cars and fire trucks descended, not to investigate, not to protect, but to eradicate. The official narrative was sanitation, a public health crusade to cleanse a city's blight. The unspoken reality was a final, brutal gambit, a desperate, almost primal hope that he could flush out the monster by annihilating his sanctuary. The orange glow of the inferno painted the steel-gray Cleveland sky. The makeshift homes of hundreds of the city's most vulnerable, men, women, children, souls who had already lost everything, were consumed by smoke and ash. Was this the desperate act of a good man pushed beyond his limits? Or was it a heavy-handed, brutal admission of utter defeat, a tactic that punished the forgotten victims anew as much as it sought their tormentor? Did the flames finally drive the phantom away? Or did they simply incinerate the last fragile clues, scattering them to the unforgiving winds, and ensuring the monster's permanent, chilling escape? Into legend? The fires raged hot in Kingsbury Run that summer, but the identity of the killer remained cold and more elusive than ever before. Sweeney was free, but the perverse dance was far from over. He knew Ness suspected him, and he seemed to revel in it, to savor the power it gave him. From the cold, sterile safety of the Veterans Hospital he had shrewdly committed himself to, he began his campaign. A campaign to torment, to unnerve the most famous lawman in America. Cryptic, threatening postcards, like whispers from hell, began to arrive at Ness's office, filled with veiled threats, mocking allusions to their secret interrogation, a chilling reminder of the phantom's freedom. It was a slow, deliberate campaign of psychological torture. The ghost was now a pen pal from the abyss. Ness was utterly powerless, trapped. His celebrated career in Cleveland never truly recovered from this shadow. He would eventually leave the city, a hero in the eyes of many, but haunted. The ghost of the torso murderer followed him for the rest of his days. It was the one case he couldn't crack, the one phantom he couldn't lay to rest. the elusive specter who had outmaneuvered the untouchable. Dr. Francis Sweeney died in 1964, taking his secrets, if secrets they were, with him to the silent grave. The torso murders, however, left an indelible, bleeding scar. They forced a grim, necessary evolution in the very art of police work. A brutal, unforgettable lesson learned in blood about the desperate, urgent need for forensic science, for criminal profiling, for a far deeper, more nuanced understanding of the fractured mind, of a terrifying new breed of killer. This case became a black cornerstone in the dark, sprawling museum of American crime.
So, what do we make of the Mad Butcher, the Phantom of Kingsbury Run, a grotesque product of his desperate, depression-scarred times, a uniquely depraved soul, an anomaly of pure evil, or something perhaps even more unsettling, a chilling reflection of a darkness that sleeps, however fitfully, however dormant, deep within the human condition itself. The bodies have long since turned to indistinguishable dust. The shanty towns of Kingsbury Run are but a forgotten scar on the land. Eliot Ness, the untouchable, has passed into the annals of history. But the questions, oh, the questions, they linger. They claw at the periphery of our understanding, much like the Phantom himself once stalked the forgotten fringes of a terrified city. Perhaps some mysteries are never truly meant to be solved. Perhaps some nightmares are destined only to echo down the ages. A chilling, persistent whisper through the long, dark, unending night of our collective memory.
They never found her.
And now, we leave the unburied question to you. Who do you believe the Phantom of Cleveland truly was? Dr. Sweeney? Another shadow from the list of suspects? Or someone, perhaps even more unsettling, a chilling reflection of a darkness that sleeps, however fitfully, however dormant, deep within the human condition itself.
Or just
Share your theories, your insights, your gut feelings in the comments below. We read every single one.
what is this
If
place?
you find these journeys into the dark, unsettling corners of history compelling and wish to
all so
support our
fast.
descent into further unsolved mysteries, consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. Thank you for watching and for listening to The Echoes.